An entrenched culture of abuse in the Defence Forces has been exposed in a new report which details 60 years of serious allegations. The report by law firm DLA Piper proposes a national apology and possible compensation for more than 700 victims whose cases range back as far as the 1950s and as recent as last year. Another report has cleared the head of the Defence Force Academy, Commodore Bruce Kafer, over his handling of the Skype sex scandal. Commodore Kafer was stood down last April, but he will return to his post later this week. Shortly, I'll be speaking to the Defence Minister, Stephen Smith. But first, Hayden Cooper looks at the history of abuse.
Defence, and in particular the ADF, has had a mirror in the form of 6 reviews held up to it over the past 11 months. As any of us normally do when we look into a mirror, we see strengths and we see flaws. It is a frank and sober assessment of the past, but it's also a very constructive and positive way forward.
It's been a challenging first year in the job for the new Chief of Defence. A year in which a foreign war has claimed more Australian lives, while at home a series of scandals has cut to the core of Defence Force culture. Now the reports are in, and the verdict confirms what everyone already knew.
There are serious issues that we must address.
Very little of the official reports will ever be seen by the public. Today, one into the Skype sex scandal was withheld. Another by DLA Piper into historical cases of abuse was heavily censored, but it still reveals a disturbing picture. Defence says 775 allegations of sexual abuse fell within the terms of reference. They stretch right back to 1951. The government will now consider how to respond. Another inquiry or a royal commission are among the options.
The overwhelming majority of those 775 allegations are plausible allegations of abuse.
Changing the culture right now is the task facing the Defence Force chiefs. They've released a report, Pathways to Change, which looks at how to do it. It's a 5-year plan to educate the forces on proper behaviour, drumming it in from the top down.
They will have a real challenge coming out of this incident to convince the soldiers, sailors and airmen in those bases that this will help them, that this will make them more professional.
Defence is talking in terms of zero tolerance. Former Army officer James Brown hopes it's put into practice.
From my own experience and from the experience of my colleagues, sacking someone from their job because they're not doing the right thing is very tough. So if you can make people much more accountable, make it easier for commanders to get rid of the bad eggs, and that will go a long way to changing the culture in Defence.
So what then of the scandal that started the avalanche of inquiries? This all began 11 months ago when an 18-year-old cadet was filmed on Skype having sex at the Defence Force Academy. It set off a range of reviews and an intervention from an angry Defence Minister. The head of the military college was stood aside. Commodore Bruce Kafer's crime, in the minister's view, was to allow unrelated disciplinary matters against the alleged victim to go ahead, despite the Skype incident.
It seems to me, in the scale of complete insensitivity to complete stupidity, that this matter was allowed to proceed.
But today, Commodore Kafer has his job back.
The Kirkham inquiry has found that the way in which Commandant Kafer and ADFA staff dealt with that matter was a reasonable approach.
So does the Minister regret his strong statements of last year?
I make no apology for making in public the very strong point that I thought it was an error of judgment to allow the character of the potential innocent victim of an alleged serious sexual abuse to be brought into play. And if the same circumstances arose tomorrow, or if comparable circumstances arose tomorrow, my position on that matter would be exactly the same.
I think, like most members of the community at large and people in the Defence Force, I was a bit disappointed that Minister Smith didn't apologise to Commodore Kafer. He's had numerous warnings over the last 12 months that he's going to have to apologise eventually, and the sooner he does it the better, and he still didn't do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of tension at the moment between the uniformed officers and the Defence Minister, and the perception they have is that Stephen Smith unfairly politicised what was a pretty low-level defence decision made by a defence officer. They believe that there's too much politics in the decision to stand down Bruce Kafer.
Others are more scathing of the minister's role. Former Senator Nick Minchin's son studies at ADFA and was involved in a training accident 2 years ago. He only has praise for Commodore Kafer's leadership.
Oh, I think it's been shocking for Commodore Kafer. Here you have an outstanding naval officer. His career is left swinging in the breeze for 12 months by Mr Smith. You can understand why Commodore Kafer would be deeply upset by what's occurred, as would his family.
The many inquiries may now have run their course, but for those in politics and those in uniform, the idea of a cleaner military culture remains a mission statement, yet to be fulfilled.
Where we'll be trusted to defend, proven to deliver, and respectful always.
Hayden Cooper with that report.